That was I Can Only Give You Everything, the A-side of the MC5's first single, released in '67, 3 years after their beginning. And this single made it to the top 10 most requested songs at one Flint, Michigan radio station, which has to be a good beginning for their fan base. Welcome. This is Keep the Five Alive, my part of the ongoing effort to keep the MC5 in the hearts and minds of not only Michigan fans, but fans throughout the world. This is a brief history of the band that we have all come to love and enjoy hearing, and where seeing was a must. While I verbally go into the history of the MC5, on the screen you will see their concert history. I have put together a complete list of all of their concerts from the beginning to the breakup of the band. Hopefully this will jog your memory and remind you of maybe when and where you may have seen them in concert. It all started in 1964 with 4 of the 5 members attending Lincoln Park High School, spending each year as classmates and then forming their first band, the Bounty Hunters. Wayne played in this band for a short time. Wayne taught Fred Smith how to play guitar. Fred would go over to Wayne's house and Wayne would show him how to play chords. And that's how it all began. Fred actually became a better rhythm guitar player with his natural abilities. So after the Bounty Hunters, while still in high school, probably 11th grade, they formed the Motor City 5, which was Wayne Kramer, Rob Tyner, Fred Smith, Bob Gasper on drums, Pat Burrows on bass. When the 5 started moving into avant rock, where they bought more amps and got louder and louder, the drummer Bob Gasper was bitching, and he was quoted saying, "I gotta keep slamming these drums so hard, I don't want to play like this." And the bass player, Pat Burrows, was getting pissed off too, and he was quoted, "I don't want to play this crazy stuff." So, these two fellas shortly faded away. In '64, Rob and Wayne had heard Mike Davis play his bass, liked what they heard, and invited him to join the 5. And it was then that Mike Davis replaced original bassist Pat Burrows. And then one day, Kramer rides his motorcycle over to the Thompson house, and he goes in the house and says, "Hey, do you want to play this gig we got? Our drummer quit." It's a place called the Crystal Bar. It's a beer joint. It's a dump. But they had printed up flyers and everything with the Motor City 5 on it. And Dennis replied, "Okay, I'll do the job." And he went down and played the weekend gig at the bar. They only had about 3 toothless bums sitting at the bar while they were up on stage playing My Generation, Yardbirds, and Kinks stuff. It was then that Dennis Machine Gun Thompson joined the MC5. The MC5 was founded on the notion that rules were made to be broken and that the 5 could change the world with their music. No other band is more closely associated to the 60s hippie movement, free love, abundant drugs, than Detroit's MC5. The hard-rocking 5-piece band poured body and soul into each of their songs and each of their performances, actively promoting the revolution that they hoped would change the button-down world of contemporary American culture. The name MC5 was chosen by Tyner because it sounded like a car part and stands for the Motor City 5, which is apt since the band came from the tough city of Detroit, famed for its auto industry and simmering racial tensions of mid-60s America. They continued paying their dues playing VFW halls, school dances, and WKNR's Keener Caravan. Then on the 7th of August, 1966, was the first day that John and Lenny Sinclair would meet the MC5. Lenny and the remaining members of the Artists' Workshop had set up a welcome home release party when John was released from the Detroit House of Corrections, and the MC5 were invited to play at this party. And then 1 month later, September '66, Wayne Kramer would return to that John C. Lodge building looking for a place to rehearse. Then their new ally, John Sinclair, granted them permission to use the place of the building for them to rehearse, as long as they only rehearsed during the day. Shortly after this, Russ Gibb attended one of their rehearsals and then signed them to be the opening band at the inaugural grand opening night of the Grandy Ballroom on the 7th of October, 1966. This night would be the beginning of a long relationship between the Grandy and the MC5. Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman had invited the MC5 to perform at the Festival of Life in Chicago during the 1968 Democratic Convention. And because of the Chicago police, they played their set and immediately got in the van and returned to Detroit as the police were coming over the hill. At that time, the record industry was essentially hit with high profits and overwhelming record sales, and they were looking for bands that would have commercial success. But they bypassed the MC5 because of their problems with the police, the FBI, and the ideas were too complex for the record industry. Then in September of 1968, manager John Sinclair brought a rep from Elektra Records over to hear the MC5. Elektra signed them to a recording contract. The MC5 had 5 managers during their history, one of which was John Sinclair from 67 to 69. John got Russ Gibb to hear the band, and Russ immediately signed them as the house band for the Grandy Ballroom.
And John said, listen, I have a band. And it was, of course, the MC5.
Well, around that time, John was starting to manage the MC5. We had a lot of trouble with managers because we were unmanageable, because we were insane. And John was as crazy as we were. And so we had some mutual respect there.
Rob Tyner had the foresight to say we need to link up with the beatnik community. And the reason we need to do that is there's a lot of artists and poets and musicians and a lot of people that can expand our audience, one, and two, help us. So we were sort of on a mission to link up with John Sinclair one way or the other.
Rob Tyner was a visionary. He was a genius in my book. And he had the idea of what this band should be, but he also was developing the songs sort of express what, they wanted to be great.
So Russ wanted to hear us, so he came over to our rehearsal. We were rehearsing at the artist's workshop. He came in and he listened to us and he said, yeah, you guys are the band. You're the band. This is the perfect band for the Grandy Ballroom.
MC5, perhaps the first ones to really kick up the stink in a political way about the Vietnam War, and totally unrecognised for it. But looking back on it, you have to say that those guys were ahead of the game. Take my hat off to them.
That was the heaviest rock and roll band I'd heard, ever when I was a kid. As far as I'm concerned, that was the first sort of punk heavy metal attitude that I was ever really exposed to.
MC5, I remember the legend, the story came before actually seeing these guys, and how powerful they were. And these guys were making a statement. They were using their talent to change the world.
And the Five would play the Grandy Ballroom from its inaugural night of October 7th of 66 to the 31st of December of 72 for a grand total of 113 concerts. And then 1 month later, recording their first album on the 30th and 31st of October of 68. This live recording would be the introduction to the world of the Detroit area's Grandy Ballroom and the hardest rock and roll music that the people of Detroit demand every day. So world, please welcome the MC5.
Brothers and sisters, I want to see your hands out there. Let me see your hands. I want everybody to kick up some noise. I want to hear some revolution out there, brothers. I want to hear a little revolution. Brothers and sisters, the time has come for each and every one of you to decide whether you are going to be the problem or whether you are going to be the solution. That's right. You must choose, brothers. You must choose. It takes 5 seconds. 5 seconds of decision. 5 seconds to realize your purpose here on the planet. It takes 5 seconds to realize that it's time to move. It's time to get down with it. Brothers, it's time to testify, and I want to know, are you ready to testify? Are you ready? I give you a testimonial. The MC5.
The recording and release of this album came at a time when many were protesting the war in Vietnam. For some of us, it came just prior to or just after getting drafted and serving in the military during the Vietnam War. I am in that group, getting my medical discharge in May of 71. But when it comes down to it, it really didn't matter what you were doing. This album gave most of us an anthem we could stick to, something that helped us through this difficult period, a phrase that brought us together and would unite us.
Right now it's time to kick out the jams, motherfucker!
Hudson's, a major Detroit department store, refused to sell the MC5's new album, taking offense to the band's lyrics. So the five went to a local anarchist newspaper, the Fifth Estate, and doubled down on their profanity. They took out a full-page ad to voice their feelings about Hudson's choice. The ad featured a photo of the band performing live and the caption, "Kick out the jams, motherfucker, and kick in the door if the store will not sell the album on Elektra. Fuck Hudson's." While Elektra had no part in this ad, after seeing it, Hudson decided not to carry any Elektra products. This caused the label to drop the MC5 on April 16, 1969, just months after the album's release on the 22nd of February. The problem revolved around the word motherfucker in the song's lyrics and in the notes on the album's centerfold written by manager John Sinclair. Elektra then released a new version of the album without the word motherfucker in the song and removed it from the center notes as well. This move was without the permission of the manager or the band. According to the Elektra president, over 70% of the company's retail outlets refused to stock the album, even though it had already sold over 100,000 copies in that 2-month period. The band survived this ordeal, quickly signing with Atlantic Records and making 2 more albums. The band has gone on to be revered in Detroit and the world as rock and roll visionaries and the innovators of punk rock, which would manifest itself in the decades that followed. When their second album was released back in the USA, they started to lose some of their fan base, as this album was not in tune with their first album, showing all of their energy and their seemingly high-powered protest anthems, but rather what seemed to be a pop-oriented album throughout the disc. But they don't remember. People bitched back when the Beatles changed from their soft music to 67's Sgt. Pepper's. This is the same thing, only in reverse. The hard driving shit came first, and then the soft music. To me, this only shows the Five's ability to cover more realms in the music world. I love every one of the songs on the second album. And now, in 2024, I still listen to them at least once a week. During their existence as a band, they only released 3 albums. 69's Kick Out the Jams, 1970's Back in the USA, and 71's High Times. A few other albums came out after the breakup of the band in the 80s and 90s. But it was 71's High Time that got the worst sales record of them all. On Tuesday, the 9th of April, 2024, we were anxiously awaiting. When I say we, I mean Chris Rockhead Haney, myself, and our friend Gary Adams, a fellow musician, who also appears on the MC5 Kick Out the Jams album cover, shown in the middle of the M as seen here. We awaited the arrival of Dennis Machine Gun Thompson, drummer and the last surviving member of the MC5, to arrive at John Sinclair's memorial service at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Detroit. But that never happened. We never seen Dennis. Stating that Dennis Thompson, last surviving member of the MC5, at the time this video was made, 2024. The other members of the band left us as follows. Singer Rob Tyner left us on the 18th of September of 91 due to a heart attack. Guitarist Fred Sonic Smith left us on the 4th of November of 94 for heart failure. Bass player Michael Davis left us on the 17th of February 2012 from liver failure. And guitarist Wayne Kramer left us earlier this year on the 2nd of February 2024 because of pancreatic cancer. And at the present time, Dennis Machine Gun Thompson still has a website for all of us to view, and it also gives us the opportunity to purchase MC5 materials. In ending this, Gary Adams, my friend and musician, is right now putting together an MC5 tribute band. So hopefully at some point in the not-so-distant future, we may get to hear the music of the MC5 live and in person once again. Thank you for listening. And now, here's a list of some of the sources I used in putting together this video and brief history of Detroit's largest presence in the loud, thumping, hard-rocking music the world has ever known, the MC5. I'm closing this with the B-side of the single from 1967, the song, One of the Guys.
One of the guys.